The file began with nothing. Not a blurred photograph. Not a grainy passport scan. Not even a half-forgotten border crossing log. Just a code name scribbled decades ago on the margin of a report that had itself been declassified only in fragments. In the world of intelligence, ghosts weren't rare. Agents who vanished, sources who whispered once and never again, operatives who switched sides and disappeared into the fabric of some foreign city. But this was different. This was a man who had supposedly shaped operations across 5 countries, provided intelligence that shifted the balance of conflict, orchestrated assassinations, sabotaged missile programs, and triggered counter-revolutions, all without ever leaving the slightest trace of his face. Even his alleged birth name had been scratched out, replaced with the words the analysts would learn to fear: the ghost. No one had seen him. No one could confirm that he ever physically met with handlers. No camera had ever caught him entering a safe house. No witness had ever described him. Every intelligence agency that tried to confirm his existence eventually dismissed him as a myth, a stitched-together invention created by imaginative officers to explain inexplicable events. But Mossad did not believe in myths. Myths didn't disable missile guidance systems in northern Syria. Myths didn't alert embassies minutes before coordinated attacks. Myths didn't provide intel so precise it allowed Mossad to intercept nuclear materials aboard a disguised merchant vessel in the Mediterranean. If you're enjoying this classified-style breakdown of a secret intelligence operation, hit the like button. It helps bring more hidden history into the light. The cinematic opening to this story begins not in a control room filled with analysts or a safe house in a cramped alley, but aboard a silent flight over the Aegean Sea. Night swallowed the aircraft as if trying to erase its existence, the only illumination coming from dim blue cabin lights and the ghost-like glow of intelligence summaries projected onto a handheld device. The operative reading them, known simply as Yael, had been summoned in the middle of the night from her apartment in Tel Aviv, handed a sealed envelope, and told her presence was required for an operation with no official designation. The ghost case file contained barely a dozen pages, yet the weight of it felt like a stone on her chest. She reread the opening line, written by an analyst who was known for being almost aggressively skeptical. Subject may not exist. Yet the rest of the file contradicted that. The intelligence attributed to the ghost spanned nearly 30 years. Actions too precise to be coincidences, too aligned to be random. He, or perhaps she, knew things no one outside Inner Circle should have known. Weapons movements, encrypted shipment schedules, the identities of double agents buried so deep even their handlers questioned them. The last confirmed communication attributed to the ghost came 14 months earlier, a single sentence delivered through an untraceable channel that Mossad had monitored for years without ever locating the transmitter. The sentence read, "The hunters are now the hunted." It was a kind of message designed to provoke, to unsettle, maybe even to mislead, but Yael felt something colder beneath it. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like closure, like a ghost signing off before vanishing forever. Weeks later, a sabotage attempt on an Israeli diplomatic convoy in Central Europe, an operation sophisticated enough to require insider-level intelligence, was thwarted at the last second. Mossad leadership connected the two events, and the fear took shape. If the ghost wasn't working with them anymore, who were they working for? Yael looked up as her partner for mission, an older operative named Rafi, lifted his eyes from his own briefings. His expression carried the weight of someone who had seen too many impossible missions and survived them all, but even he seemed uneasy. "You believe in this?" she asked. "I believe in patterns," he said, "and this one isn't random." The flight dipped lower, preparing for a covert landing in a closed airstrip in Greece, a staging point used for operations across Europe. The moment the wheels touched down, the mood shifted. Mossad logistics moved in silence. Bags were switched, phones secured, disguises distributed. No one said the word ghost aloud. In the operations room beneath the airstrip, screens illuminated fragments of a puzzle analysts had spent decades assembling. A route of bank transactions, seen not as evidence of someone hiding money, but of someone testing whether they were being traced. A set of encrypted messages that seemed to contain references to historical events, but were actually coded data transfers. A blown cover story in Cairo that had never been attributed to any known mole. A scientist in Ukraine who disappeared and reappeared under a new identity days before an assassination attempt. All different eras, all different regions, yet all bearing the same invisible fingerprints, unmistakable to those who knew how to see. The project lead was a woman named Leora, a veteran analyst whose superiors rarely questioned her instincts. She stood in front of projection, showing a web of blurred lines. "You are looking," she said, "at the only trace of the ghost ever discovered. This is 28 years of misdirection, layered identities, severed communication chains, and false flags." She tapped a point on the screen. But here we found something different. A single line pulsed on projection, a traceable digital signature embedded so subtly into a communication that only a newly developed algorithm detected it. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. A breadcrumb. "The ghost wanted someone to find this," Leora said. "He wanted us." The mission wasn't to capture him, nor to eliminate him. It was to find the truth. Who had they been working with for decades, and why had that person turned silent? Yael studied the pattern again. It wasn't the signature of someone trying to flee. It was the signature of someone drawing a path. "Where does it lead?" she asked. "Berlin," Leora said. "To a dead drop that hasn't been used since the Cold War. Berlin, the city of competing shadows. The birthplace of half the intelligence folklore of the 20th century. If there was ever a place where ghosts hide or reveal themselves, it was there." Mossad deployed a small surveillance team ahead of Yael and Rafi. Embedded assets in Germany discreetly checked old safehouses, archived Stasi records, and historical dead drop sites once used by KGB, CIA, Mossad, and East German intelligence. Most were compromised long ago, turned into tourist sites, or replaced with apartment complexes, where children rode scooters in courtyards that once had secrets. But one site, one narrow alley between two abandoned factories, remained untouched, frozen in dust like a museum piece no one knew about. The team arrived at night, moving like shadows through the industrial remains. The smell of rust and old oil hung in the air. A stray cat darted away as Rafi lifted a loose brick from a damaged wall. Behind it was a hollow space where a dead drop container might once have been placed. Instead, there was something newer. A small metal capsule, perfectly preserved. Yael lifted it carefully. Inside, a flash drive, sealed in anti-static packaging. But what froze her wasn't the drive. It was a folded note beneath it, written in flawless Hebrew. "You took longer than I expected. Gee." The signature felt like a hand reaching out from another world. Back in the rented safe house, the team prepared to analyze the drive. Mossad protocols demanded extreme caution. No device was ever connected directly. Instead, a multi-layered air gap system was deployed, running through enough hardware isolation to frustrate most known types of malware or traps. For a long moment, the screen remained black. Then a single video file appeared. Rafi exhaled sharply. "No name," he said. "No metadata. Nothing." When Yael clicked play, there was no image, only a distorted voice disguised beyond recognition. "If you are seeing this," the voice began, "it means the world I inhabit has begun to collapse. And that means I have enemies, far more powerful enemies, who know what I know. I am not who you think I am. I am not what you believe I am. But you need to understand one thing. You have been compromised. Your systems, your networks, your people. You are chasing the wrong threats." Yael felt her pulse quicken. The voice continued. "For 30 years I provided information to Mossad. Never for money, never for ideology, only to prevent events that would lead to total destabilization. But now there is someone else. Someone who has discovered how to turn the shadows against you." Rafi stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "He's warning us." But then the voice added, "And there is something else. You are not alone in watching this." The screen went black. Before the team even processed the message, the safe house lights flickered. A high-pitched electrical whine echoed through the room. Yael spun around just as the surveillance monitor, a feed displaying the alley outside, glitched. A figure stood outside the building. A silhouette, tall, still, watching. The camera caught only the outline. The face remained in shadow. A presence, not a person. Then the feed cut entirely. Yael's heart hammered. "Someone is here," she whispered. The ghost had left them a message, but someone else had followed them to find it. And with that realization came the understanding that the mission had just shifted. They weren't tracking a ghost. A ghost was tracking them. The power outage lasted no more than 10 seconds, but it felt like a void swallowing the entire safe house. When the lights returned, the air seemed heavier, as if electrified by something unseen. The team immediately checked their weapons, their escape routes, their fallback positions. Mossad protocols dictated that any compromised safe house was abandoned within minutes. Yet a strange paralysis gripped the room, as if everyone sensed that leaving might not solve the true problem. Yael stared at the blank surveillance monitor, trying to steady her breathing. She replayed the silhouette in her mind. The stillness, the angle of the shoulders, the posture of someone who knew exactly how to appear threatening, without revealing anything identifiable. Rafi leaned close. He wanted us to see him. Or someone wants us to believe it was him. Yael said, "But why show up now after decades of no sightings?" The operations lead back in Greece. Leora arrived on a secure line. Her voice crackled with tension. "You have 5 minutes to evacuate. Whoever cut your surveillance feed either penetrated your exterior power grid or spoofed your system. Neither scenario is acceptable. We're not leaving until we understand what's happening," Yael said. "The ghost left us a message. Someone else knew we'd find it." "Which means," Leora replied, "your mission has escalated into a hostile environment. Extract the team." But Rafi shook his head, motioning for Yael to mute the call. "If we leave now, we lose the only trail we've had in 30 years. Someone wanted us here, and someone else followed us. You think the ghost is going to send another message if we run?" Yael unmuted. "We move in 2 teams. One extracts the intelligence. The other follows the surveillance breach." Leora exhaled sharply. "Your operational authority is discretionary within the field of engagement. Make your call." Yael ended the call before hesitation could interfere. Mossad didn't train officers to freeze in moment-of-decision scenarios. They trained them to lean forward. Minutes later, a small unit exited the rear door of the safe house, carrying the flash drive inside multiple layers of shielding. They vanished into the night, heading to an extraction point that would reroute through Vienna before returning to Tel Aviv. Their footsteps were silent, their identities invisible, even to each other. Yael and Rafi remained. Outside, the street was empty. The industrial district around them slumbered in darkness, except for a few flickering sodium lamps. Shadows clung to the alley walls like stains. Yael checked the corners, the rooftops, the windows. Her instincts prickled. Someone had been there. Someone adept enough to breach one of Mossad's most sophisticated monitoring systems without leaving a signature. They moved deeper into the alley where the dead drop had been found. The scent of diesel mixed with cold metal. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn moaned through the Berlin night. Rafi scanned with a handheld thermal sensor. Standard in operations where unknown surveillance threats were expected. Nothing. No heat signatures. No animals. Not even a wandering drunk or homeless sleeper. "Whoever was here left," Rafi said. "But not long ago." Yael crouched near the wall. The ground was slightly damp from a recent drizzle, yet one patch of concrete was dry, approximately where the silhouette had stood. "He knew the camera angle," she murmured. "He stood just outside its line of sight." Rafi rubbed his jaw. Only someone trained in counter-surveillance would know that, and only someone deeply familiar with Mossad's tactics would know how to time it. The words hung between them. Someone deeply familiar with Mossad. As they began to search the alley for anything left behind, Yael's encrypted device buzzed. A new message. Untraceable sender. No metadata. Just a single line. "You're too late." Rafi stepped behind her, reading it over her shoulder. "He's mocking us." Yael's fingers tightened. But another thought crept into her mind. Was the ghost mocking them? Warning them? Or trying to manipulate them into following a path he needed them to take? If you're enjoying this breakdown of high-level intelligence psychology and tradecraft, don't forget to hit the like button. These operations aren't for the faint of heart. They returned indoors to gather their gear for pursuit, but before they could move, a vehicle approached from the far end of the street. Its headlights flickered off. The engine's silence was too deliberate. Rafi peeked through the window. Black sedan. No plates. European intelligence? Yael asked, could be Russians. Could be Iranians. Could be someone who's been tracking the ghost longer than we have. The car door opened soundlessly. A lone man stepped out, his hands visible and empty. His face was partially obscured by a hood, but his posture radiated purpose, not threat. He didn't approach the door. Instead, he looked up toward the window where Yael watched. Then he lifted his hand and held out an envelope, a physical envelope, the kind no modern operative used unless they needed to evade digital traces entirely. Yael and Rafi shared a tense glance. If this is a trap, Rafi said, it's the most old-fashioned one I've ever seen. One way to find out, Yael replied. She stepped outside into the night, each footstep calculated. The man didn't move. He simply held out the envelope, as if offering her a receipt for a delivery. Up close, she saw no distinguishing marks on him. No tattoos, no scars, nothing that anchored him to a known background. His eyes were dark, alert, but not hostile. For you, he said. His voice wasn't disguised, yet it was unfamiliar. Who sent you? She asked. He smiled faintly. You already know. Then he turned and walked back to the car. Stop, Yael commanded. But before she could draw her sidearm, he was inside the vehicle, and the engine roared to life. The car sped off, disappearing into a turn before backup could be called. Rafi hurried over. What's inside? Yael opened the envelope. A single photograph, not of a person, of a building, a small nondescript bookshop on a quiet street in Budapest. Handwritten on the back were coordinates, a date, a time, and 2 letters. G.A. Rafi exhaled. Ghost agent. It was the first physical clue they had ever received. The first time the ghost, if it was him, had pointed them directly to a location. But the timing was tight. 48 hours from now. Someone wanted them in Budapest. Or someone wanted them to die in Budapest. In the Berlin safe house. They connected the dots. The ghost message warned of a new threat. The silhouette suggested surveillance or counter-surveillance. The envelope pointed to the next stage of the hunt. Everything aligned too perfectly. It felt like an operation within an operation. A riddle in which every solution opened another question. While preparing to move, Yael asked a quiet question that had been gnawing at her. What if the ghost isn't one person? Rafi paused. What do you mean? Think about it. No photos. No sightings. Decades of activity across multiple continents. That level of reach, it might be a network. Or a persona used by several operatives in rotation. Or, Rafi said, one person who was trained by the best of several intelligence agencies. Someone who learned to erase their existence. Yael looked at the photograph again. The bookshop seemed ordinary. Too ordinary. Either way, we'll find out. They traveled covertly, avoiding airports and major transport hubs. Mossad had a network of safe vehicles stashed across Europe. Cars that blended into local environments, already supplied with burner devices and false documents. Yael and Rafi took one across the Czech border, moving through rural roads shrouded in fog. The tension inside the car grew with every kilometer. Why reveal himself now? Rafi said, maybe he never wanted to. Yael replied, maybe someone forced him out of the shadows. Budapest greeted them with winter chill and streets washed in amber light. The city was beautiful in a way that felt unsettling, too quiet, too observant. Mossad had long-time assets there, but Yael and Rafi couldn't risk exposing them. Their mission had already been infiltrated enough. The bookshop stood on a narrow street near the river, nestled between a pastry shop and a tailor. Its sign was faded. Inside, only one dim bulb illuminated dusty shelves, and an elderly shopkeeper who hardly looked up. Yael approached the counter. We're looking for a specific collection. The woman nodded without surprise. This way. She led them to the back, past aisles of forgotten novels and brittle parchment. At the rear was a storage door. She unlocked it and stepped aside. Inside was a small room containing a single chair and an old reel-to-reel tape recorder. A note sat atop the machine. Play only once. Rafi checked the room for explosives, pressure triggers, optical sensors. Nothing. The room was clean. Too clean. Yael pressed play. A hiss of static filled the space. Then the disguised voice from Berlin returned. If you've made it this far, it means the Watchers have not yet reached you. Good. Listen carefully. I was never your asset. I was never your agent. But our enemies were the same, and so our goals temporarily aligned. Now those enemies have turned their attention toward you. They are not Russians. They are not Iranians. They are not Americans. They are something far worse. They have taken the shadows I once mastered and learned how to weaponize them. Yao's skin prickled. The voice continued. I cannot meet you. Not yet, but I can give you a name. Track him and you will find me. A long pause. Then a name was spoken. Low, careful, heavy with meaning. Rafi froze. Yael's eyes widened. They both knew the name. Everyone in intelligence knew the name. A man believed dead for 12 years. Then the tape cut out. Before they could react, they heard the shop bell ring. Someone else had entered. Someone quiet. Someone waiting. The bell above the bookshop door chimed softly, but the sound threaded to the narrow aisles like a threat. Yael immediately signaled Rafi with a two-finger gesture. Silent movement, no sudden steps. Assessed distance to exits. The tape recorder was still cooling from its last rotation, the faint smell of old circuitry mixing with the dust. Whoever had entered chose not to speak. That was the first sign they were dealing with a professional. Yael peeked through the crack of the storage door. The shopkeeper sat at the counter, expression steady, but her hands trembled faintly as she touched the ledger. The front of the shop looked empty, but the air wasn't. Someone was between the shelves. Someone moving with precision, checking vantage points, ensuring no blind angle offered cover. They weren't browsing. They were hunting. Rafi whispered. He followed us, or someone sent him. Yael whispered back. Either way, this ends here. The figure walked past the poetry section, a tall silhouette, wearing a coat long enough to conceal a weapon. He kept his head down as if reading spines, but his eyes were scanning reflections in the shop's small glass cabinet near the entrance. He caught the faintest glimpse of motion, Rafi adjusting his stance behind a shelf, and paused. Too observant, too deliberate, too late to play innocent. Yael stepped into the open. Stop, she said. The man froze. Not fear, calculation. Slowly, he lifted his hands. You're Mossad, he said calmly, his accent neutral but seasoned, like someone who had traveled through nations and learned to belong nowhere. Turn around. Yael ordered. He turned. He had no weapon drawn, but something about him radiated danger. Not the over-aggression of an assassin, but the quiet, lethal composure of someone who knew he didn't need to threaten to kill. Rafi moved behind him. Who sent you? You already know, the man said. Say it, Yael pressed. He smiled faintly. The same man who sent you here. The ghost. The word didn't need to be said, but the contradiction hit Yael like cold water. Why would the ghost lead us to Budapest and then send someone to intercept us? The man chuckled softly. Intercept? No, I'm your escort. Rafi moved closer, suspicion sharp enough to cut steel. Explain. He reached into his coat with the slow, deliberate movements of someone fully aware he could be shot at any moment. He withdrew an envelope identical to the one delivered in Berlin. Yael took it. Inside was a single sentence. Trust no one except the one who follows. The man pointed to the tape recorder behind them. He knew you wouldn't trust anyone. So he sent someone who knows exactly how Mossad reacts to traps. Who are you? Yael asked. The man hesitated. Then, someone whose life the ghost once saved. And someone he said would be needed when the time came. Yael studied him. Why now? Why reveal him now? Reveal? The man laughed under his breath. He's not revealing himself. He's revealing the ones chasing him. Rafi narrowed his eyes. And who are they? The man's expression darkened. The only people the ghost ever feared. Yael felt a chill ripple through her. We need names. Names won't help you, the man said. They're not a government. They're not a cell. They're individuals, former intelligence operatives from multiple agencies, disavowed, presumed dead, trained in methods so old they were never digitized. They've been hunting the ghost for years. And now, they believe you can lead them to him. Rafi muttered, "Wonderful." Yael kept her voice steady. "Where's the next location?" The man shook his head. "He'll contact you. But he wanted me to give you a warning." Yael nodded. "Go on." He said, "The hunters think they know your patterns. Don't use Mossad extraction routes. They're already compromised. And they are, every one of them, monitored." "How do you know?" Rafi demanded. "Because I was one of the people monitoring them," the man said quietly. Silence descended. He wasn't their escort. He was a defector. And someone, somewhere, now knew they had him. Yael stepped closer. "If you worked with them, why switch sides?" "I didn't," he replied. "I'm switching to survive. The ghost is the only one who can keep me alive. And now you—" Before Yael could respond, the shopkeeper suddenly gasped. The front window spider web of cracks, a bullet hole opening like an ink stain on glass. "Down!" Yael shouted. The shooter wasn't inside, but outside, across the street, positioned perfectly to kill the man who had just affected. The bookshop erupted into chaos. Shelves splintered. Dust exploded into the air. Rafi grabbed the defector and dove behind a heavy wooden table. Yael returned fire, shattering a display window as she aimed toward the sniper's perch. A second shot tore through the bookshop sign, where her head had been a moment earlier. The attackers were trained. Silent. Surgical. No wasted bullets. The same people hunting the ghost. Yael touched Rafi's shoulder. Moved toward the back exit. "I'll cover." They hurried to the storage room, ducking as another round pierced the wall. The defector breathed in ragged, panicked bursts. "How many?" Rafi asked him. "2 snipers," the man gasped. "And ground support. They'll close in." "Fantastic," Rafi muttered. "A welcoming committee." They exited through the alley behind the shop. The cold hit them like a slap. Neon lights flickered above dumpsters. A cat sprinted away in terror. No gunshots yet, meaning the assassins were repositioning. Yael pointed. "Cars 2 blocks away." "Move." They sprinted, keeping low between parked vehicles. The defectors staggered but kept up. Rafi covered their rear with short bursts of suppressive fire. A motorcycle roared to life behind them. Yael cursed. "We're blown." The rider accelerated fast. A silenced SMG raised. Yael dropped behind a car, fired twice, missed. The rider swerved. Rafi hit the fuel tank with a controlled, precise shot. The bike skidded, crashed, igniting in a burst of flame. But that wasn't victory. It was confirmation. The assassins had no intention of letting the defector live another minute. They reached the car, a dusty sedan they'd stashed earlier. Yael shoved the defector inside, leapt into the driver's seat, and slammed her foot down. The tires screeched, gripping the asphalt, as they sped through narrow Budapest streets. Sirens rose somewhere in the distance. Locals called police when they heard gunfire. Mossad did not have time to explain. The defector groaned in pain. "They'll keep coming. They won't stop." "Who is their leader?" Yael demanded. He hesitated. "Tell me?" He whispered a name Mossad analysts believed dead. A name erased from all surviving intelligence archives. A name spoken only in stories passed between veteran operatives who refused to discuss the darkest operations of the Cold War. Yael's grip tightened on the wheel. "He's alive." "Yes," the defector said. "And he wants the ghost more than anyone." "Why?" "He wasn't just hunting him," the defector said. "He was training him." The implications hit Yael like a blow to the chest. They weren't dealing with a rogue intelligence agent. They were dealing with the man who created the ghost agent. And the ghost wasn't running from Mossad. He was running from his own mentor. Rafi looked out the window, scanning rooftop shadows. "So this whole thing, Berlin, the dead dropped the tape, it's all the ghosts try to weaponize us against him." "No," the defector said. "It's the only way he can survive." Yael's phone buzzed. An unknown number. No metadata. No trace. She answered. The disguised voice returned. You've met him. Good. Keep him alive. And now listen carefully, because you have very little time. Yael swallowed. Where are you? Close enough, the voice said. And far enough. But you must understand he has already found you. You cannot fight him. You cannot outrun him. You can only do what I ask.